I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Welcome to the awardees and to the annual awards for the Chattanooga Police Department tonight. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Michelle Heron. I'm an anchor and reporter at Channel 3, and I am so honored to be asked to be part of this event. But this event is about you guys. It's about the hard work of the Chattanooga Police Department and their families who also share their loved ones in the work that they do. This has been such an important year. I myself have watched you guys. I've watched the department become so resilient and be so strong in some trying times. And we remember all of that this evening, and that is what this evening is all about, is recognizing the hard work and the work that your families have done as well by sharing you guys with your community, and we appreciate that from the bottom of our hearts. So first of all, let's go ahead at this time. Let's bring in Chaplain Andy Bell. He is going to open tonight's ceremony with an invocation.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go to prayer tonight. Heavenly Father, I want to thank you for this opportunity that you've given us to come together, dear God, with family and friends. Father, we thank you tonight for those that are going to be recognized. We thank you for the contributions and the sacrifices that each officer, each supervisor, each special unit, each agency, dear God, that has contributed, and to the civilian personnel, Heavenly Father, also that have worked hard and diligent to commit to this department and to our community, Lord. We're thankful tonight, dear God, that we can come together and rejoice and celebrate the victories that our officers have won throughout this last year, dear God. Father, we also want to take a moment and pause and remember the families of the officers that this department lost last year, Father. Lord, I ask a special blessing for Nick Gallinger's family and also for the family of Sergeant John Monroe, dear God. I pray, dear Lord, that you would just fill that void in the hearts of their loved ones with your love and your grace and your strength. Lord, just bless our time together tonight. Thank you once again for all that you've done. And these things I pray in thy holy name. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain Bell. We appreciate that. Now I would like to introduce the Chief of the Chattanooga Police Department, Chief David Roddy.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, right there. Good evening. I had the pleasure of standing in this exact spot a little over a week ago and watched 21 new Chattanooga cadets get their badge for the first time. And the advice that I gave them that night was to never lose sight of their why, to hold on to the why they wanted to be a Chattanooga police officer, why they wanted to protect and serve, why they wanted to stand in the positions that we stand. And as I look out here tonight, while doing that, because I can't see any of you actually, but before these lights turned up, I got to see the faces of all of our recipients tonight. And it was a reflective moment because there are some of you still within your first year or two. Many of you have moved on into your careers, some into your second decade. We won't point out those of you that have been here longer than that, because most of them are sitting on the stage with me. But you still get it. You still understand your whys. And tonight is a celebration of where your whys moved into actions. Whether those actions were that single courageous moment where you found a part of you that some people don't know is in them, and you do. And you put it into action. And you put yourself in a position that others would never dare to be. And it resulted in a courageous act, or it resulted in a life saved. And others of you are being recognized where your why manifested in actions over an entire year. Whether it's simply just understanding the job of a police officer is to be there in every single moment, to give that hand when needed, that pat when it's deserved, the encouragement, the presence in the life of a child or a community or a neighbor, whatever that looked like. Your why became evident in that way as well. So the last thing I will say tonight is I want to frame this evening's festivities. While we started with a little bit of drill and ceremony and everyone stood at attention and we followed our commands to salute, that is not the rest of tonight. Tonight is an opportunity to celebrate your loved ones, to celebrate your coworkers, to celebrate your friends. So if you want to yell from the back, yell from the back. If you want to come up here and take a picture, do it. If you want to dive off I'm just kidding, you can't dive off the stage. There's church is going to get upset with me for that one, but do what you feel necessary to celebrate the person and persons that we are here to recognize. So let's have fun with it. And on behalf of the Chattanooga Police Department, thank you for joining us tonight. Let's have some fun.
Thank you, Chief Roddy. Who's ready to have some fun? All right, I like it. I like the energy. First of all, we have a guest speaker tonight, and I would like to introduce her. She is Miss Julie Baumgardner.
Good evening. It is truly an honor to be with you all this evening to celebrate the accomplishments of members of the Chattanooga Police Department family. The other night I was scrolling on Facebook and I ran across a friend of mine's post, and it had a picture of a guy running towards what looked like a really bad accident. And she proceeded to say, "That man in the picture, that's my husband. We're on vacation, on a family vacation for the first time in 5 years. And we were headed to the store when we came upon this accident. There are no first responders here yet. We stopped the car and my husband jumped out and bolted towards the scene of the accident to see what he could do to help." And then she ended it with, "He is my hero." And when I read that, I was also preparing for coming to be with you this evening, and it made me think of every one of you and the work that you're doing, because I know that would be you. It's in your DNA. You would jump out of the car and you would go without hesitation. I have always had appreciation for the work that you do. That appreciation, I would have to tell you, grew about tenfold when I went through Leadership Chattanooga a number of years ago. When we had Law and Justice Day, I believe that Mike Williams was the commander of the SWAT team at that moment in time, and we did a shoot, don't shoot exercise. And the class elected me to be the one to have a gun, which I proceeded to tell them I had never shot a gun before, and I really did not think that that was a very good idea. And the only thing I can tell you is that at this moment in time, my nickname still remains Rambo. But truly, I have to tell you, that was a life-changing moment for me. And it really brought me to a place where I would say I'm one of your fiercest defenders in the community, because you hear lots of things, and what I really hadn't thought about up until that moment is these split-second decisions that you all make every single day to protect and to serve us. You have really dedicated your lives, your why, to keeping our streets and our neighborhoods safe and to caring for the children and families. I've had the privilege of working with many of you up close and personal for 17 years at Movies in the Park, and I've watched you handle lost parents and difficult people with such honor and respect, just smooth, calm. I love that about you. You are so amazing for our community. A year or so ago, my husband and I pulled into the parking lot of a restaurant to grab something to eat, and we parked where we never park. It was the oddest thing, but I got out of the car, and just out of the side of my eye, I noticed something, and so I took a second look and realized that there was a woman in a van. She was in the driver's seat, and she was asleep, and there was a very small child in the back seat. And I knew something was very wrong. So I called 911, and you all came. And you handled the mom. You did exactly what I would have expected you to do with her. But then there's this little child whose mom has been taken away. And this officer, I actually sent a text message to the chief afterwards because it was amazing to watch how he cared for her and just genuinely made sure that her needs were met until someone got there to be able to take her home and care for her. It was one of those moments that just, it just made me proud for what you all do every single day in our community. It was a beautiful moment. What I know to be true is that on any given day, you guys, you see things that rip your heart out, and you see things that really make you proud of our community and the people who live here. And you treat all of us, every single one of us that you encounter, with respect and dignity because that's who you are. There is no question that we are living in perilous times. I don't think I've ever known a time in my life when disrespect for the law and those who enforce the law was so rampant. And yet you have chosen to answer the call every day. You serve, you're dedicated, you sacrifice unselfishly, seeking to make a difference in our community. You go above and beyond the call of duty, and I have personally seen that. You are our heroes. I would be remiss if I didn't include your families in my remarks. Many of them I have gotten to meet through the years as I have presented at the Family Academy, the spouses who understand why you jump out of a car on vacation to run to the scene of an accident, the parents who know you've wanted to be an officer since you were a small kid, and they understand it's a calling for you and it's your passion, and they stand by you. Your children who are so proud of what you do, and some who have even followed in your footsteps. Amazing. And they are heroes too. As we honor the award recipients this evening for their bravery, perseverance, character, dedication, the way they honor the department, honor our community, and you honor each other, relentless pursuit of justice and courage. May you all be reminded why you do what you do. This is a noble profession, worthy of respect. we as a community are grateful to every one of you for your service. May God bless you. May He protect you in the days ahead. You are our heroes. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you, Ms. Baumgardner. Now, let's go ahead and move to the moment that we've all been waiting for. Awardees, when your name is called, I want you to approach to my right, or the right, I should say, shake hands with dignitaries, and then proceed to Chief Roddy to receive your award, and you're going to exit on the left. Families, you're a part of this too. If you guys want to come up and you want to take part in coming up here, you are welcome. If you don't want to, you don't have to. We also want to make sure that you get the pictures that you want, because that's what it's all about. So if you want to come up and take a picture, you're more than welcome. If you want to come up here, you can too. So it's all about what you feel comfortable with doing. You're welcome either way. So let's go ahead and get started, okay? First of all, we're going to start with Civilian of the Year. This goes to Marcy Keith. Marcy. It sounds like Marcy is a little popular here. As Marcy comes up, let me tell you a little bit about her. She is the administrative assistant for Sector 1 to the downtown precinct. Those who work with her, they describe her as vital to the operation of the facility and the day-to-day operations of neighborhood policing, special operations, and school patrol. She goes above and beyond to make sure that the precinct feels more like a home rather than an office. One example, she makes sure that each shift has a fresh pot of coffee brewing by the time they get to work. And you know how important that is, okay? So she also arranges that food and drinks can be delivered to the precinct, and it's all to help keep morale high. You know how important that is too when you're coming to work. So much so that even if a light bulb goes out, if she's on duty, she's gonna make sure it's not out for long, okay? She's gonna fix it herself if that's what she has to do. And for that, Miss Keith, you are Civilian of the Year. Let's give a round of applause for her. Thank you to her. I hope all of the applause are like that all night long. I can already feel the energy. All right, let's move on to Rookie of the Year. This goes to Officer Joseph Seach. Officer Seach came to the Chattanooga Police Department. He came to the department with an abundance of knowledge for the job. He served in the U.S. military. He later served on the Tennessee Probation and Parole Board before entering the academy. He's described as a team leader and a great role model for newer officers. He's hardworking. He's regularly one of the top stat producers for the team. Last year, he answered more than 2,000 calls. He wrote more than 387 citations, 270 warnings. He's regularly working with the gang unit on his off days, just because he hopes to one day be chosen for the gang unit one day. He also helped the homicide unit identify 2 murder suspects that led to their arrest and prosecution. Officer Seach's willingness to help others sets him apart from so many at the department. He's willing to learn, and he always goes above and beyond for his team. Officer Seach, this is why you're Rookie of the Year. Thank you. Next is Investigator of the Year. This goes to Investigator Terry Topping. Investigator Topping.
I think we're going to have to factor in applause time.
Investigator Topping is taking on the opioid crisis in our community head on, and the work that he is doing in our community is amazing. He's part of the narcotics division. He's worked tirelessly to figure out how to combat the problem that several communities are dealing with. Last year alone, he responded to 82 overdoses. He made the decision to start holding the drug dealers accountable for what is in their product. You've probably heard this in the news. It's different from how it's been handled in years prior. Over the last year, his investigations have led to the indictment of 3 individuals for homicide for allegedly selling narcotics that led to the overdose deaths of people. Investigator Topping also makes himself available to the public for educational seminars. He held more than 30 of those presentations in the last year, and this is all on top of his regular day-to-day duties, and all of this is why Investigator Topping is Investigator of the Year. Thank you. Next is Field Training Officer of the Year. This goes to Officer Brian Blumenberg. Officer Blumenberg has been with the department for 19 years. 9 of those he served with the FTO program. He's currently with Charlie South on day shift. He's trained 4 probationary officers over the last year, and from what I've been told, that's not an easy feat. He's also committed to the quality of his work. He goes above and beyond by performing additional responsibilities outside of his regular assignments. He has a positive attitude. He maintains a professional appearance, and all of these traits make him Field Training Officer of the Year. And as you can see, he's got a couple eyes that are looking up at him, so let's give him a round of applause. Thank you. Now is Patrol Officer of the Year. This goes to Officer Brian McClard. Officer McClard exemplifies the very best that the department has to offer. He's the kind of officer that his chain of command wants everyone to emulate. He's arrested 66 people over the last year. 23 of them were for felonies. He's helped recover 15 vehicles. That's a $166,000 in value. He's helped return that property to their rightful owners. He wrote a very thorough aggravated assault report, which resulted in the arrest of a suspect for a separate homicide that very next day. He also resolved a situation where a person with a gun was threatening suicide. No one was hurt in that situation. He can be relied on to help the community stay safe on a consistent basis. And as you can see, he's also a new father. This is Patrol Officer of the Year, Officer Brian McClard. Thank you. Next is Supervisor of the Year. This goes to Sergeant Alan Griffith. I love how tuned up everybody is. All right, Sergeant Griffith, he leads his unit and others by his example of his hard work, his passion, and commitment to his unit mission. He communicates the goals and the standards that are set for his unit, and he encourages feedback and input. He also encourages his unit through praise and mentorship. He has also helped change the culture of the agency through his positive influence and his mentors through his coaching, and he's present at the time of crisis. That can go a long way. He is Supervisor of the Year, and again, let's say thank you to Sergeant Griffith. We move on now to Manager of the Year. I'm also told this is the Time Clock Award. A couple of you may know what that means. This goes to Captain Jerome Halbert. From what I've been told, Captain Halbert has been racking his brains over the last year, and I'm going to tell you a little bit as to why. So he is responsible for all of the Special Operations Bureau. He is always responsive and diligent with tasks that are assigned to him. His dedicated work ethic has been on display this year with the implementation of Time Clock Plus for the department, and it's been just a little stressful, if you can imagine. He's worked tirelessly after hours to ensure that employees' compensation has not been disrupted, and he's also made sure that there hasn't been a miscalculation in people's paychecks during that transition. Captain Halbert's dedication to the department is why he is Manager of the Year, and we appreciate you. We move now to Officer of the Year. This goes to Sergeant Sean O'Brien. This is the highest honor an employee of the Chattanooga Police Department can receive. Over a squad of officers in Baker North Day, Sergeant O'Brien is the go-to supervisor to handle a plethora of issues for the entire city. He's helped fellow officers build situational awareness, and he's also helped officers train in different situations. He recently took on a new assignment with Homeland Security, and he is excelling in that position. His impression has prompted the FBI to have him present his personal experiences in Washington, D.C., in Virginia, Utah, even Georgia. He's been instrumental in starting and maintaining the peer support group, if I can say that. He's been seen numerous times outside of working hours helping officers at home over a meal, family crisis, and critical incidents. His selfless service to his department and community is why Sergeant O'Brien is Officer of the Year. Congratulations. All right, a couple of these next awards are going to go a little bit quicker, so just so that you're aware, we're going to go to the Citizens Police Academy Award. This is the Member of the Year. This goes to Rick Cochran. Thank you, Mr. Cochran. All right, we'll move on now to Chaplain of the Year. This goes to Chaplain Darren Delaney. Down here, okay. You have to keep clapping so it's not awkward when they walk up. Thank you, Chaplain Delaney. All right, we're going to move on now to something that I know has been really important for the department for the last few years, the spirit of community policing. This is going to go to two officers, Officer Lee Mayweather and Officer Eric Milchek. You guys brought back the eagle.
If I may add, this is the single most obnoxious trophy that we could find for this award. If anybody knows the one better, let us know, but these are fantastic. I love giving these out. Say America.
Thank you, Officers Milchek and Mayweather. We appreciate you. All right, we're going to move on now to distinguished alumni, or I guess I should say alumnus, because this goes to two people. This goes to Melinda Bryan and Helen Cooper. And and Chief Roddy has just something to add to that.
When we sat down and we're having conversations about who we felt deserved the award this year, right? I know I'm waiting on him to get up here. I'm filling in the silence right now. Bear with me. A recent article came out in the Pulse magazine, which I'm sure these two alumnus are familiar with. But some of the excerpts having to do with Melinda she said she wanted to be a cop when she was 10 years old. The real hurdles started in her career existed among city bureaucrats in the community in what Melinda calls the uniform debacle. The city leadership were stalled on deciding which uniform was appropriate for patrol women. They couldn't figure out if they wanted us to wear skirts or the standard issue. The city didn't have uniforms that fit us. I sure as hell wasn't going to wear a skirt, so I modified the men's uniform on my own. She went on to advance her career by attending training courses with the FBI for homicide investigations at Quantico, sex crimes with the TBI in Nashville, and for her, going outside the city to learn how others investigated crimes was an eye-opener. Her quote in the article was, "I wasn't out to save the world. If I managed to save just one person in my career, then I did my job. I've had this philosophy that if you treat people with respect and dignity, then you will get that in return." Helen's statements in the article was when she started her work, she met an officer on the department, and that sparked her interest in becoming a Chattanooga police officer. She said she was looking for full-time work, and this officer offered her a job in the records department, and she fell in love with record keeping, which means she should have never passed a psychological exam and gotten hired by us in the first place. She went on to say, "They had no idea what to do with us. From the uniforms to our duty pistols, we were only allowed to have these dainty .38 Chief Specials because it was believed we couldn't handle larger calibers. We eventually proved that idea wrong, damn it." She asked the chief of police to put her back on patrol, this time on night shift, and the request was granted. And she eventually became the first female police officer of the Chattanooga Police Department to graduate the prestigious FBI National Academy in Quantico. She said, "My entire career was a highlight, and looking back, I wouldn't change a thing. Police work is about accepting all aspects of it, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And if you have any doubts about doing what is required, then it's not for you." Though both of these women maintain a humility about their contributions, there's a spark in their eyes when recalling the horrors and heartbreaks that came into life in uniform. The author didn't doubt that, but if given the chance, these legends would come back out there to show the world how it's done. At that academy graduation that I mentioned about a week ago, out of 21 cadets, we graduated 8 female cadets in that academy class. That was the largest percentage of female cadets to ever graduate at Chattanooga Police Academy. These are the women that braved and trailblazed that path for those cadets, and we could not be prouder. Thank you very much.
Ooh. I think after all that, they deserve one more round of applause. That is an awesome story. There are two other people. We're going to go off script just for a brief second. No one's going to come up here, but it does deserve some recognition. We're also going to recognize tonight Mary St. Clair and Kim Miller. So let's give them a round of applause. We appreciate all of you. All right. Okay, so this is my favorite part of the ceremonies because it's the life-saving awards. These are always amazing, and I wish personally as a journalist that I could do stories on all these and put it all out there for everybody to know. I can't, but they do deserve recognition, and I hope that you really listen to some of the stories behind this because I can't imagine what it was like witnessing in real life. Just reading it off of the paper is amazing to me. All right, this first life-saving award goes to Investigator Terry Topping. This was a quick lunch with a colleague turned into a life-saving moment for Mr. Topping. The pair were eating when his friend and comrade started choking on a piece of food. Mr. Topping quickly realized that what was happening, and he jumped up. He hit his friend in the back to try and dislodge that object. And then when that didn't help, he started to administer the Heimlich maneuver. The object then became dislodged, and his friend was able to breathe again. No one else but Mr. Topping came to this person's aid at that restaurant that day, and it is very likely that he saved his friend and his comrade's life. Thank you, Mr. Topping. This next life-saving award goes to Investigator Donis Bucci and Officer Jonathan Adams. Both of you guys can come up at the same time. There was a call of an unresponsive party on Boynton Drive in February. Investigator Bucci and Officer Adams responded to that call because they were in the area. When they got there, they found a man unresponsive and started to perform CPR, and then they placed him in the recovery position until medical and fire units got there. Both men later went to Park Ridge for a status update, and that was where they found out that not only did that man live, but he thanked them for saving his life. And that is why tonight this award goes to Investigator Bucci and Officer Adams. Thank you. There you go. Thank you, guys. Thank you. All right, this next award goes to investigators Jacob Lee, Dennis Harrison, and Jonathan Bradley. These men observed a man walking in the middle of Cleveland Avenue back in April. They saw a firearm in that man's front pocket. They tried to stop him by turning on their blue lights, but then that man started walking faster. As they approached him, they noticed that he pulled out the firearm out of his pocket, turned, and then fired in the direction of those three officers. The trio fired back, protecting themselves and each other. The person was hurt. Some of his wounds were life-threatening. The three officers started life-saving measures by applying pressure and a tourniquet to stop that blood loss, which in turn saved that man's life. Tonight, they're being recognized with this life-saving award for saving a man's life who had just tried to take theirs. Thank you, investigators Lee, Harrison, and Bradley. This next award goes to Officer Madison Hazen. Officer Hazen. Officer Hazen was helping out Charlie North when she responded to an accidental overdose at a hotel on Shallowford Road. When she got out, she found a 23-year-old woman unconscious laying in the breezeway. She was not breathing and she did not have a pulse. Officer Hazen performed 2 sets of chest compressions and opened the woman's airway, and she started breathing on her own. When medics arrived, they administered 2 doses of Narcan, and she regained consciousness before being transported to the hospital. Everyone who responded to that call feels that if it weren't for Officer Hazen's quick actions, the woman would not have survived. And this was also, mind you, a little nugget here. This was her second time performing CPR in 24 hours. Before that, she had never performed CPR on a call before that. So for that, this life-saving award goes to Officer Hazen. Thank you. This next award goes to Officer Alvin Abbott. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Officer Abbott responded to a CPR in progress on Morse Hill Road in February. The caller reported that his mother was in congestive heart failure and had fallen out. Officer Abbott rushed to the scene, and when he got there, he located a faint pulse. He started CPR and continued until EMS got there and took over. Before transporting the woman, EMS stated that she had a decent pulse and she was moving around. The caller was very grateful for Officer Abbott's quick response, his professionalism, and his attention to detail to save this woman's life. Thank you, Officer Abbott. This next life-saving award goes to Officer Shane Martin. Officer Martin responded to Cheddar's on Gun Barrel Road last February to a CPR in progress. An off-duty nurse was performing chest compressions on a 74-year-old man. He got there with an AED and a CPR mask. He then took over chest compressions and he performed breaths. After 4 shocks with an AED were administered, they continued until medics arrived. The ER doctor says that these actions saved that person's life, and that is why he is being recognized with this award tonight. Thank you, Officer Martin. This next award is going to 3 people, Officers Eric Scaife, Joseph Seach, and Charlie Decker. These officers responded to a pedestrian struck on East 5th Street in January. A woman's leg was almost severed from above the knee. She was losing a lot of blood. Officer Scaife began performing first aid to the woman. Using his training and his equipment, he helped restrain the woman as she was overwhelmingly in pain, and as you can imagine that. Officers Seach and Decker applied a tourniquet to her leg. These officers exercised a complete disregard for their own personal safety just to save this woman's life. The hospital staff says that their actions saved her life that day. These actions are why they're receiving this award tonight. So thank you, Officers Scaife, Seach, and Decker. We now move on to recognize Officer Christiana Pierre. Officer Pierre responded to a shots fired call on East 19th Street and Reed Avenue last August. She found a man lying on the ground with a gunshot wound to the top of his left shoulder. The wound was so serious that he could have potentially bled out without immediate first aid treatment. Officer Pierre applied direct pressure to the wound to stop the bleeding until paramedics got there. He was taken to the hospital in critical condition, and she saved his life, and in return, he was able to identify the suspect who shot him. These efforts are why she is receiving this award tonight. Thank you. This next award goes to Officer Joshua George. Officer George responded to an unresponsive party who had fallen out in March. He found that the woman wasn't breathing and didn't have a pulse. He started CPR and continued until fire and EMS arrived and took over. But this is what's next is what's amazing. On the way to the hospital, the woman regained a pulse and started breathing on her own. He took it a step further by helping the woman's father by giving him a ride to the hospital so that he could be there in the time that his daughter needed him. Not only did he save this woman's life, he helped establish a stronger relationship with the community by showing compassion for her family and helping them during this tough time. Thank you, Officer George. We now recognize Officers Luke Simon and Zachary Lloyd. These officers responded to an attempted suicide on Veterans Bridge last July. When Officer Simon got there, he found a man sitting with his back against the rail. He stopped to do a wellness check. He saw that the man was in distress, and he stopped to talk to him. When the man wasn't answering his questions, he then noticed that the man started to stand up and was entering a squatting position. That is when Officer Lloyd got there. As Officer Lloyd approached, the man got up and tried to throw himself off the bridge. Both officers grabbed a hold of the man. They pulled him back up over the railing and back down to the street. The man was not hurt, and he was taken to the hospital. Officers Simon and Lloyd are receiving this life-saving award tonight because of their actions during this man's darkest hour. Thank you, guys. This next award goes to Officer Joshua Price. Officer Price responded to an accidental overdose on Vance Road in January. He found a man unresponsive and unconscious, and he had possibly taken heroin. Officer Price administered 4 doses of Narcan, and he performed CPR until the man was revived. He was taken to the hospital, and he was able to make a full recovery. Then about a month later, Officer Price was dispatched to Lee Highway, again on an accidental overdose. When he got there, he found the same man. Officer Price administered a dose of Narcan and started sternum rubs. He administered another dose of Narcan until that man regained his senses. The man was taken to the hospital and made a full recovery. Officer Price was able to save this man's life not once, but twice, and for that, he is receiving this life-saving award tonight. This next life-saving award goes to Officer Brian McClard. Officer McClard responded to Dodson Avenue in March to a person shot. He cleared the scene and found a gunshot victim under a product display shelf. He was able to pull that victim into the aisle, and he began a rapid medical assessment. He noted multiple gunshot wounds, including a chest wound and a wound to the person's upper thigh or hip area. He ran out to his car to retrieve his go bag. The person was unresponsive and had labored breathing. He retrieved a chest seal and applied it to the chest wound. He then tried to find an exit wound, but he couldn't find it, so he moved on to the next most severe wound, which was the upper thigh area. He realized he couldn't apply a tourniquet, so he applied direct pressure with his knee to stop the bleeding. These amazing efforts saved this person's life. Officer McClard's ability to rapidly assess and react to a medical crisis without question saved this person's life. Thank you, Officer McClark. This is our final life-saving award of the evening. It goes to Officer Rick Engel. Officer Engel responded to a suicidal party on the Walnut Street Bridge last June. The man had climbed to the top of the iron supports of the bridge. Officer Engel got there. He started to talk to the man, who was very distraught, and he appeared to be summoning up the courage to jump. Officer Engel utilized information given to him by a relative about the man's children to help connect and establish a rapport. He was able to convince the man to climb down and discuss what he was struggling with. He then took it a step further by driving the man to the hospital, not because he had to, but because he said that he would. The actions of Officer Engel helped this man choose not to follow through with ending his life, and that is why he is receiving this life-saving award tonight. Good seeing you. All right, we're going to move on now to some of our Victim Support Services awards. We have 2 of them this evening. The first one goes to Officer Chad Yates. Officer Yates is being recognized this evening for how he and his team handled a call at a technical college. A woman was having a mental health crisis. He interacted professionally, sensitively, and in a trauma-informed manner. This could have been a situation easily where a mental health consumer or her teaching staff were further traumatized. But instead, a crisis was averted. The woman received the care that she needed, and he helped build trusting relationships to both the woman and some of the colleagues at one of our colleges. So for that, thank you, Officer Yates. This next Victim Support Services Award goes to Investigator Damarise Gearing. Investigator Gearing demonstrates support and understanding to ensure all victims' needs are met every time with every case. She never loses sight of the fact that our primary goal is to create fewer victims in the future. She always connects victims with quality services delivered by compassionate and committed providers. Moreover, she gives them a voice in the criminal justice system so the victims can begin a successful path to recovery. Her goal is not to maximize the number of criminal defendants, but to rather be objective in minimizing the number of crime victims. And for that, thank you, Investigator Gearing. These next couple of awards are going to go just a little bit quicker, just to give you a heads up. So first, we would like to recognize Community Partner of the Year. This goes to the Special Olympics. Accepting on that behalf is Jennifer McAfee. Thank you, guys. We would now like to recognize Law Enforcement Partner of the Year. This goes to the Tennessee Highway Patrol. We would now like to recognize the Federal Partner of the Year. This goes to the United States District Attorney's Office. Now we move on to the Explorer of the Year. This goes to Ezra Killian Howard. Now we have some special awards that come from Chief Roddy himself, so we would like to bring him up for those.
This is one of the perks of being chief. I just get to hand awards out. The first one that I would like to extend tonight is a direct reflection of an individual's dedication to change. He has put a tremendous amount of effort into restructuring our field training officer program, how it functions, how those field training officers work into the training within the academy of how we build new officers, how they're trained once they get out of the academy, and how they go on to become productive members of our police department serving and protecting this community. So without leading this entirely long list of what a lot of your supervisors sent me, I would like to give the Chief's Award in recognition of everything he's done to make us a better department to Officer Matthew Ballinger. The next award is in recognition for a unit within the Chattanooga Police Department that often goes unnoticed. A little bit by their own design because they don't like anyone to notice them. But they routinely get handed those little bitty jobs and sometimes great big jobs of, hey, take a look at this and let's figure out what we can do. There's a neighborhood or a street or a community in need and they need our help. And that unit is our narcotics unit. Now, understandably, they're deep, deep, deep undercover. And by that I mean they shave their heads, they grow goatees, they put their wallets on chains, grow creepy facial hair. What you do in narcotics, it's just a thing. But they also will not be able to step up here tonight and receive their award. So receiving the award in appreciation of the Chattanooga Police Department's narcotics unit is Miss Alice Turner. But we did secure an actual picture of the entire unit that we would like to show you. That's what they look like. So. The next Chief Award is to recognize a small group that, whether it's 20 degrees or 120 degrees, no matter what time of year it is or what the weather looks like, you will find them downtown. That is our bike unit. I had the pleasure of riding around with a few of them a couple of months ago, and it was amazing the number of people that these officers knew and had real relationships with. The reflection I had on that is that these officers, a regular district officer may encounter during the course of their business 20, 40, 60 people. On a regular day downtown, these officers probably engage and interact with hundreds. And they do it representing this police department, and they do it in an incredibly professional and dedicated manner. And like I said, in all manner of weather, sometimes wearing a fantastic pair of shorts while they're doing it. Woo, that's what I'm talking about. But see, it keeps going. In recognition of the Chattanooga Police Department Bike Unit for everything they do for us in the downtown area, I'd like to extend them a Chiefs Award. And the final Chiefs Award tonight, a little while back, we had a program that was presented to us called Take Me Home. It's a software program that, as individuals that have communication barriers, whether that's Alzheimer's, dementia, autism, and sometimes these individuals get lost in our community. They walk away from home or loved ones. The Take Me Home program is a way that, as a patrol officer encounters an individual in this crisis, that they can type in factors of their appearance. It searches through a database, and it pulls up photographs of individuals that may be in that particular situation. And it connects their loved one's information with that officer in the street at that time in hopes of reuniting them and settling the fears of a family and ensuring the safety of that individual. Now, we were first brought this program by a member of the Chattanooga Fire Department, and it was a program from another state. It was a great idea, but the software was a little bit antiquated. It just didn't work. So, doing what chiefs do, we took a look at it, and we were like, this is a great idea. And so we went to our city IT department and asked them to fix it. So in essence, it was like we were the Wright brothers, and we were like, you know what? I want to fly. If you guys could build us a plane, that'd be great. And by God, they did it. They built the structure from the ground up. They put it together, and it was actually crafted into legislation last month to where the program that they built that was initiated and designed and launched in Chattanooga is now going to be spread to any law enforcement agency in the entire state, free of charge, off of the program that these individuals built. So if I could ask the members of the Chattanooga IT department that built this thing and made it possible, please come forward. We're going to change the pace for just a second. In the last year, the Chattanooga Police Department also suffered some loss. And tonight we're going to do a reflection on the 2 members of our agency that we did lose in this past year. But we are still going to do it with the celebratory heart that we started tonight with. This is to raise respect and honor for the 2 individuals that we did lose. The first of those being Sergeant John Monroe. I'm going to read you a little bit about John's past. John Monroe was honorably discharged from the United States Marine Corps after 8 years of service, having achieved the rank of Gunnery Sergeant. He received numerous commendations, including the Good Conduct Medal, National Defense Service Medal, and the Overseas Service Ribbon. Served as a Marine Security Guard for President George H.W. Bush, President Clinton, and President George W. Bush. He proudly served in the U.S. Marine Drum and Bugle Corps and protected U.S. embassies in Suriname, Brazil, Spain, and China, and finally Singapore, where he met his devoted wife, Ty. He then went on to join the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office, where he worked as a corrections officer, and then thankfully we were blessed enough to have him join us. He began his career with the CPD November 6, 1998, served in the Highway Interdiction Team, later transferring into patrol, and then again serving as a field training officer. He was promoted to sergeant and then transferred to Alpha Team, transitioned his current role as training sergeant in April of 2015, where he shaped and led 13 classes of police cadets into this department. December 2017, Mayor Andy Burke presented him with the Honorable Award of Excellence. He has been known to anyone that has known him as a world-class marksman, passionate musician, and lifelong scholar. He was enrolled in online courses at Chattanooga State, pursuing his degree in psychology, and given an honorary associate's degree in psychology after his passing. The Chattanooga Police Department training classroom has been dedicated in his honor as the Sergeant John Monroe Jr. Classroom. The Regional Counter-Drug Training Academy presented Sergeant Monroe with the Arthur M. Hitchens Award for Excellence in recognition of his outstanding work, facilitating training for CPD officers as well as for officers in the surrounding area. And Chattanooga, because of Sergeant John Monroe's work, was named as only the 2nd city in the world to be recognized as a Regional Counter-Training Academy city, and it was because of his work. And in continued celebration of Sergeant Monroe, the training and the preparation that he worked for in this department in design of the tourniquets that you see on the duty belts of all the officers in here tonight. Also in what we call go bags in the cars. That was mentioned in one of the life-saving awards that you heard earlier. In that bag are the various items that through research and training John knew we would need. It ranges from flashlights to tourniquets, to emergency life care supplies, to ammunition, to you name it. Knowing John, there's probably a book in every one of them. But in celebration of John's legacy with us and what he has taught us and made us better at protecting our community and saving those that depend on us, as we have affectionately called those bags go bags, they will now all be emblazoned with the badge number 944, which is John's badge number. So moving forward, those will be referred to as 944 bags. So we figure that's a fitting tribute to the sacrifice and the time that we were fortunate enough to have John with us, and we continue to celebrate him tonight. And if you will, join me in a round of applause in celebration of John. We also unfortunately had a second loss within days of John's, and that was the loss of Nicholas Scott Gallinger. Nick graduated from the CPD Academy in January of 2018, and unfortunately during his FTO phase, he was struck and killed by a hit-and-run DUI driver on February 23, 2019, while checking a rose hazard. Nick was a native of Cincinnati, Ohio, and he moved to Chattanooga in August of 2018 to pursue his dream of becoming a Chattanooga police officer. At his funeral, Nick's brother Doug, said Nick drove all the way from his Georgia home to Chattanooga, sleeping in his car overnight, just to take the police academy's assessment test. And in his services, Nick's dad, Barry, said it wasn't until Nick got into the CPD Academy that he truly found his star, his why, his calling. Nick wrote in his application that he wanted to be a police officer because it is truly the most noble of occupations. Police officers are a team instilled with morals, values, and a calling greater than oneself. And Nick demonstrated that in the short time that he wore our badge. In one call, he responded to a suspicious activity call a few days before he was killed. The reporting party saw his photo on the news and contacted CPD to let us know that he was kind, polite, and a very calming presence for her. She said Nick and his FTO thoroughly checked around her home and neighborhood, and she was able to go back to sleep knowing they were so concerned for her safety. Nick's FTO said he loved being a cop and was hoping to one day become an investigator. That's the why. That's the why I mentioned earlier. That's the why that we look for in our newest members in our academy. That's the why that we were fortunate enough to have in Nick for a brief moment, and that is the why that we were fortunate enough to have in John for many years. So if you will, please join me in celebrating Nick Gallinger. One last presentation we wanted to bring to you tonight was in celebration of Bill Markham, who we lost this last year as well. Bill was a longtime employee of WRCB, and anyone that spent any time in the Chattanooga Police Department had an interaction with Bill. I was telling Michelle at the beginning of the ceremony, right before the ceremony started, that when I was in the police academy years ago, they used to do the Crime Stopper reenactments. Well, they would come down and ask cadets to do the role playing for that. So myself and two of my cadet mates, of course, what do you do in the academy when somebody asks for a volunteer? Because you haven't learned yet, your hand goes straight up. So we volunteered for that. And I got to spend an afternoon with Bill and a camera and two of my cadet mates acting like we were dragging one of the other one's body out of the woods. To a cadet police officer, it was the greatest afternoon on the planet. But I got to know Bill a little bit better, and I got to know Bill a little bit better and better over the years, and I truly developed a respect for his level of caring, of wanting to make Chattanooga a safer place through his dedication to the Crime Stoppers program. So I'm indebted for the time that I knew Bill and the time that I shared with him, because it reaffirmed my why for this community.
You know, now with the Crime Stopper segments, it's anchor Greg Glover that does those every Wednesday, I believe it is. But it's not the cadets that get to role play. It's just the random people they find sitting around not doing anything at the station. So on Wednesday, everybody's really busy. But let's just take a moment to remember Bill Markham. David Carroll, who is a longtime anchor at Channel 3, put together this piece to honor his legacy.
It all started in Huntsville, Alabama. William Markham, seen here, squeezing between the prettiest girls in 5th grade, grew up fascinated by radio and TV. He started out with radio jobs in the small Alabama towns of Albertville and Gunnersville before moving up to Montgomery, where he was asked to fill in for the local TV news anchor. That led to a 40-year career on camera. He covered everything from feature stories to crime. Bill had worked with Cindy Sexton in Huntsville, Alabama in the early 1980s. After working solo at Channel 3 in Chattanooga for a few years, he recruited Cindy, and they became one of the longest-running anchor teams in the nation. In the newsroom, Bill led by example. He was easygoing, lighthearted, and everybody's best friend. He led a busy life outside the news business. He was a devoted family man. He was an avid sportsman and sports fan. He loved cars, buying, selling, and even racing them. He was involved each year in the Pat Boone Bethel Bible Village benefit shows, the Jerry Lewis MDA telethons, and the Share Your Christmas food drive. When we think of Bill, we think of that smile, that mischievous twinkle in his eye. He was the calm of an often hectic newsroom storm. Bill loved life, and his positive presence enriched our lives.
We definitely miss him. And you know, Bill was able to start the Crime Stoppers program 35 years ago, and it's still going on today. And it's that infamous, if you have any tips that can help solve whatever crime is being highlighted that week, it can but it can get you $1,000 cash in your pocket, and you can stay anonymous. And I know that does help solve crimes and helps the jobs that you guys do by piecing all of those together. So we definitely miss him and appreciate him for starting that. All right. Well, it looks like we're wrapping up 10 minutes early. That's a good thing, though. Thank you guys so much for coming out here this evening, and it's been touched on a few times this evening. Don't forget your why. When it gets hard, when you start to get frustrated, when it's hot, when you've been working those long shifts, don't forget your why. Your families as well. I know sometimes it can be frustrating when you're sharing your loved one and things don't seem fair, but we all appreciate you. We appreciate the time that you dedicate to your communities, and trust me, we don't forget about it. Thank you guys so much for coming out here this evening. There are some light refreshments once you walk outside, so stop by, get some of those. I think there's even a little bit of cake. But thank you guys again for coming out this evening, and don't forget that we appreciate you. Thank you.